there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and welcome to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right, and to avoid any lazy negativity, we're making this into a drinking game. Any negative criticism about a film is absolutely allowed, but you will have to drink for it every time.
So pour yourself a glass, because you're not really going anywhere at the moment, and give it up for some films we love and perhaps the films that need some love.
Jeff, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about our current situation, what we're going to be doing with the podcast?
So there's something going around called coronavirus.
What?
I don't know if you heard it. Yeah, it's also called COVID-19. So we are doing this remote. In the past, we've all been in the same room, and it's been really fun. We've had a good time making the podcast, but we are separated. So I'm actually in Massachusetts. You two are spread out in New York City, but we're making it happen because the people need their content. Everybody wants to see movies, and we have to make it happen.
Yeah, so just fair warning, my upstairs neighbor dropped a bowling ball about 5 minutes ago, I'm pretty sure. It might have been a body. I don't know.
I'm going to go with the body.
Some strange things. We're in a New York apartment.
Hard to know, sure. And also up front, to all of our small film fans, that's right, to all the little ones, there will be cursing in this podcast, so maybe seek out some parental guidance before listening to this podcast.
Yeah, so if you're Jeff's parents, we're going to include a link for some bunny videos you can watch.
They are going to hate, I can't tell if they love or hate the shout out. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. They must think that all we do is talk about them when we're not talking about the podcast.
We do the podcast for them, right?
Even if they do, who cares? It's bunnies.
You know what? I know that no matter what happens on this podcast, they're going to listen to the whole thing.
We'll give them something fluffy to look at. They'll be fine.
John, how about you talk about...
So hold on, we'll have a couple...
John, talk about our sponsor.
Couple more announcements to get back to about what we're going to be doing with the podcast, but very quickly, as usual, want to give a shout out to our beer sponsor for this drinking game we play. Again, we are all doing our part. We're trying to be responsible, so unfortunately, we are not drinking Carlos Barrozo's beer this week. I wanted to go pick them up. I was too nervous. I didn't want to risk anything going out last week. So Carlos Barrozo is still our beer sponsor. We are still drinking his beer in spirit. Give him a follow at C Barrozo Bar 2019. That's CBARROZOBAR 2019. Delicious brews. We are going to get them back in our hands as soon as we can to make sure we are drinking those because we miss those beers. Also want to give a quick shout out. The music you hear on this podcast every single week, the beginning, the end, all the transitions is by the artist Dasein. That's Dasein. Go over to SoundCloud right now if you want to check him out. SoundCloud.com/Dasein-artist. Lots of tracks there for you to check out.
To sit in your apartment chilling out to.
Absolutely. Definitely recommend it. Some good groovy chill music. Anyway, we are back. Jeff's going to tell you a little bit about what we have decided to do with the podcast because... like I said, we're trying to be responsible. We want to change things up. We know everybody is stuck at home right now. And we had a conversation yesterday. We are really excited to transition away from doing movies that are in the theaters. And we're going to be starting to do, Jeff?
Because there aren't any.
Yeah, we wanted to do bingeable movies, right? So there's a lot of lists going around, which is like movies you can finally get into now, or the movies that you've always wanted to see, but you never had the time, or maybe you were thinking you wanted some new films that were culturally relevant. But now you can get into watching, I don't know, a trilogy. So we did open it up a little bit. So it's not just trilogies, but it's going to be trilogies and franchise films. And we decided to do a little bit of a power ranking. So we are coming up with the best of the trilogies according to us and nobody else. So it's not very democratic. But what we decided to do is we came up with our 16 favorite or favorite-ish trilogy series, or franchise film series. And we gave them a ranking. So, for instance, up next week is going to be our number 1 choice versus our number 16 choice. And you will hear which two series, oh my God, Jesus Christ, the beer! Which two trilogies or film franchises those will be. You'll hear about that at the end of the podcast where we will tease our next episode. But yes,
this is a thing we can only do with all three of us in separate rooms.
That's right. And just so much time to watch movies and cry by ourselves, for sure.
So anyway, we're really excited about that. We're going to start doing that next week. We're going to change the format up a little bit, but going to be really fun, I promise. These are going to be movies you love, maybe movies you've already seen or movies you've been wanting to see. And what a good time, what a good excuse to sit down and watch hours and hours of rewatchable movies. We've got you covered. Don't worry. Tune in next week. Hopefully at the beginning of this week, we'll have that posted for you, actually. We're going to try to record Sunday. So keep an ear out for Monday. We'll be coming at you. Anyway, on this week's episode, we did go to the theaters safely over the last couple weeks. Very empty movie theaters here in New York City. We are in New York City. And we did check out, so we're going to stick to our typical structure for this week. We saw 2 movies that we're going to be comparing some older films to. Going to kick it off first with The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss, directed by Lee Wanell. And later in the episode, we will be talking about The Way Back, directed by Gavin O'Connor, starring Ben Affleck. And then at the very end, we, of course, will have our redemption of the week, our bad movie of the week, which we will reveal when we get there. You got to earn it. You got to come on the ride. So first up, we are going to be talking about Lee Wanell's The Invisible Man. Jeff, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's right. Sure. First things first, did you guys go to the movies with the Lysol? I like wiped the seat more than I've ever, like bed bugs, lice.
I shaved off all my body hair and I covered myself in Purell.
I trusted the staff in my theater. I trusted them. They did a wonderful job up until everyone was closed.
Right. They definitely seemed like they knew their job was about to go on hold for a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So The Invisible Man. So The Invisible Man is about a woman played by Elizabeth Moss named Cecilia, whose ex was abusive. So she leaves the relationship, which causes him to take his own life. And he is a tech genius in experimental software, to say the least, who left his entire fortune to her under the one caveat that she has to stay sane. She can't be deemed mentally unfit to handle the fortune, and she can't commit any crimes. But this guy, I don't know, maybe he's still alive, and he just went invisible. And so the movie becomes, let's just call it what it is. The movie is Believe Women, because she believes she is being followed and haunted by her ex, who is now invisible, and nobody will believe her because nobody has ever seen or heard of an invisible person. And so you follow this story about basically this invisible person driving her insane and people having trouble believing her. Why don't we get into our thoughts? Let's start with Dave.
I love this. I had a lot of fun watching this. I like the first, I don't know whether you guys felt it, but the first 5 minutes is incredibly tense. This is kind of not for someone who suffers from anxiety. Just the very opening where she's escaping from the house, you're like, and the guy's not even invisible yet. Like, they built tension so well in this movie. I love the way it was shot. We'll actually briefly talk later about some of the technical stuff behind it, which was amazing. Especially on a budget of $7 million. All in all, I don't think I can fault it. I think it builds tension very, very well. And when it hits the payoff, it's a bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I point out it drops on digital today? At the time of this recording. It's out on demand.
Yeah, this is Friday, March 20th, and it is on demand. So you can rent it at home and watch this movie, and it's a good rent. Also, the producer behind this film is Jason Blum of Blumhouse Productions, who you probably know from the Purge series. He did Get Out. He did The Boy Next Door with Jennifer Lopez. All the great low-budget horror films.
My favorite things.
Yeah, the classics.
Yeah, but he does low-budget horror films, and this is certainly one. There's a lot of tension, a lot of thriller elements to this film.
Didn't he also rescue M. Night Shyamalan from? Didn't he?
He rescued. Yeah, that was him. He did.
Did anybody rescue M. Night Shyamalan?
No, he did. Shit the fuck out, Dave. John, what do you think of the film? You thought it was perfect, right?
Oh, I think every film is perfect, especially this one. This one was absolutely perfect, except for a few things towards the end, which took a little bit away. But overall, I enjoyed this film quite a bit. We've already sort of talked about it. I respect Elizabeth Moss quite a bit. She is a really good actor, and this is one of those movies. This is one of those performances. If you don't buy every single moment of her, because she's on pretty much in every shot. So if you are not on board with what is happening to her, if she is not believable, if she can't carry the tension alone, the filmmaking is not going to mean shit. So she does her job. She did her job all the way from beginning to the end. So first of all, props to her. Generally speaking, the performances were actually really strong. Give a quick shout out to the other actor who I thought was really great. Aldous Hodge did a really wonderful job.
Yeah.
Was it
guy.
Benedict Hardy or Oliver Jackson Cohen? I guess he was the Benedict Hardy, I believe, is the brother. He was fantastic.
No, Michael Dorman. Michael Dorman
Dorman.
played Tom Griffin.
Okay,
the brother.
thank you.
Michael Dorman. Yeah, that's the guy you hate.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's-
yeah.
he-
Yeah, you just said the most likable person in the entire movie was hateable. Dave.
Yeah,
Way
sorry.
to go. People are gonna come after you after they
He's
see
the
this
brother,
movie.
right?
I didn't
Yeah,
stay
yeah.
for the credits. I was scared.
Yeah.
He was great.
Dave said the guy who took her into his home and protected her from harm. He's like, yeah, you fucking hate that guy. That's the
Yeah,
worst.
I mean, he didn't listen to her. He just,
Yeah. So
myself. I buzzed
get out of here.
myself. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this movie was definitely a thriller, and it definitely had some thriller-esque elements to it. John, you said there were a couple things that maybe you probably could have improved on yourself, like personally, they didn't work for you. But ultimately, were you thrilled? Did you have jumps?
Yeah, there's a couple good jumps. And this is not a jump scare movie. This is a slow burn with a couple jump scares. This is the anxiety, this is the tension. The best moments of the movie are without a doubt when it's the quiet moments. When you are feeling her loneliness, her isolation, when she has nobody else in the real world to hold her belief that there's this man out there accountable and it's just her, and you can feel her losing her mind. Those are the best parts. The only thing about movies like this, they can fall flat if they create or dictate a physics of the world. So obviously, some spoiler alerts here. I'm not going to try to give away anything too detailed, but she believes that there is a real live person who has figured out how to be invisible that is actually coming around. You start watching the movie and it starts to be slowly proved to you that she's not crazy, that there's the physics of the world are being tampered with by this invisible person. So you get on board. There's a couple really excellent fight scenes where they really carry it off and the physics are still believable. And then, like so many of the horror movies, especially that lower level stuff, the lower budgets, they have choices to make as the very end if they're going to let some holes stand. And this one, unfortunately, there were two holes. There was a fight toward the end where they broke the rules of their physics and something unbelievable happened. And there was a moment at the very end. Yep.
Basvium.
There's a moment at the very end where they really break the physics. And it's the twist. It's the major thing at the end. And everything about it is great except for the physics. So there were 2 or 3 problems that they could have had a foolproof thing. I'll go ahead and drink.
Yeah, go ahead.
The only reason this frustrated me is because unlike a lot of B horror movies, this is not a slasher movie. This is not just a jump scare movie. This is not super low campy budget where you can rely on holes to be a part of the entertainment. I just said that sentence. You can't rely on that with a movie that takes itself this seriously. And I mean that as a positive thing. Everyone in the movie took themselves seriously. The acting was elevated to a sincere performance. You knew you were watching a horror movie, but it felt more like an anxiety thriller, like a psychological thriller, because they weren't relying on the camp. So it just frustrated me a little bit towards the very end. There were 2 or 3 simple mistakes they made, and I know they were choices because they were technical choices. They chose to ignore them. I know they did because there's it's not a happenstance thing. They decided on those and the way they designed the production for those 3 choices. They said, "Fuck it, let it fly." And it unraveled just a little bit for me a little bit. I felt everything up until that moment, and I kind of just had to do that thing that I get frustrated doing when I'm taking a movie seriously, where I have to just say, I guess they had to do that to get to the end of the movie, which was a real shame because I was on board up until that point. However, I liked it. Everyone should see it. It was really fun. Wait till the lights are off. Watch it alone if you can. Go a little crazy.
It's definitely a fun but tense watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. I'll just say there's only one pet peeve I have, and sometimes it happens in these movies, sometimes not always, but sometimes you need to get to a result, and you excuse little things like she walked through his lab to get out of the house, and then went, gee, I wonder if he's invisible. And I was like, you just walked by the invisibility, so we all saw it, and you have access to it. Hey, okay, maybe it's a little bit of a spoiler, but here's the thing.
No, I'm gonna keep doing this. Can you drink that?
I'm drinking. My only pet peeve.
Drink, bitch.
With these kinds of movies, it's built in that you at home are going to be there like, wait, didn't you see the suit? Wait, you have to go back to the house. Wait, come on, you have to do this. And you become like a character in the movie.
Didn't you see the invisible suit?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But so
Spoiler.
you at home are kind of going to be
Spoiler
like,
alert.
turnarounds. Oh my God, there's an empty house, but the door is open. Clearly, there's some invisible person in the house. My only pet peeve is you can't guess a fucking password. Don't do it, filmmakers, writers. Stop fucking doing it. Nobody can guess my password. You have no idea. My password makes no sense because I want nobody to be able to guess it. How did she guess his password? Get the fuck out of here with that.
Apparently, they guess passwords in
Otherwise,
movies.
honestly,
Jeff
I
has to
love the
drink
movie.
15 times.
I know.
You will never get. Somebody try to guess my password. You will never.
That's what I'm talking
guess
about.
it.
Man. That's what I'm talking about. It's one of the traps of horror movies in general. And again, if nobody cares about anything like that if the movie isn't taking itself seriously. If it's a camp, then we're like, fuck it, this is great. That's how movies cheat all the time. But if you take yourself seriously and then you do things like that, it is a flaw. It didn't. Let's at least say that. I will drink. We will all at least agree that mistakes like that don't make the movie better.
That's not a mistake. They did it on purpose. They wrote that into the script.
I mean, come on, that's cheap
The
and
password
easy.
scene sucked.
As we've seen, you're right. Otherwise, honestly, the movie was very thrilling. I'm very glad I watched it. I had a good time. I recommend it to everybody.
The spears and my invisible.
What are we comparing? Okay, are you ready to move on to our comparison film?
Actually, no, just quickly, I would like to note that the
Oh,
other
sorry,
star
Dave.
Yeah.
besides Elizabeth Moss
And
was the cinematography.
Cinematography, dude, yeah.
Yes. Oh, fuck yeah.
Cinematography in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
movie,
Sorry.
Yeah, it was such a good use of like negative space and the fact that they would literally pan the camera to an empty location and you're like, is he there or isn't he?
Yeah.
And it was like a masterclass in how to direct your viewer. For instance, with the living room scene where they're having a warm moment and then suddenly, for no explained reason, the camera cuts to you peeking around
Yeah.
like a doorway halfway down the hall, and
Yeah.
it's like, and then it cuts back, and you're like, "What the fuck was that? Like, is there someone there?" And it puts you on edge. And they use the cinematography to work you up into the frenzy that eventually leads to the payoff where it all comes apart. And
I thought that was so special because I love psychological thriller. I mean, you can't talk about this genre without talking about Hitchcock and some of the older guys who are just really Cukor, who we'll be talking about a little bit later. For the past 2 episodes now, we have seen at least one film, Portrait of a Lady on Fire last time, Invisible Man this time, who used really traditional, simple, but effective filmmaking techniques. And those were the best part of this film. The first hour of this movie is the slow tension building. You really get inside her head and her point of view, and it starts happening to her. I'm not saying that the Invisible Man doesn't start fucking with her in the first half, but they mostly rely not on the technical special effects achievements of when he starts really getting involved in the physics of the world around her. He starts fighting other people. He fights her. Before it gets to that stuff, it's only the stuff that you're talking about, Dave. And it's so effective. It's the beginning. It kind of made me wish as we went on, I don't think they went overboard. I don't. I still enjoyed this, but I think the strongest parts of this movie were when I didn't know.
The moment he reveals himself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, this movie was really fun. That is true. It was awesome. There were a couple sequences, especially in the attic when she's crawling around the attic, and there may or may not be an invisible guy in there with her. It was really, and she's awesome. She is a movie star. She is beautiful, but she just seems like a normal person. So it's very relatable. You watch her in a performance, and you sit there and you go, I relate to this. That could be me. That could be somebody I know very easily.
I mean, my takeaway from that was like it's like the tension of Silence of the Lambs in the basement at the end for about an hour.
Yeah. And I think that,
and then when they finally release the tension, it's so much that you just go the rest of the way and you don't notice those holes, and it's just the ride. Like if you get fully invested in that tension, I mean, when it finally snaps, like the note that I wrote for that, I didn't even want to mention it, but like I literally wrote, "Well, that fucking escalated."
Yeah,
and
it really takes
because
off.
you're sitting there comfortably going along tense as hell, and then all of a sudden, okay, we've tipped the scale one way.
Yeah.
I just wish they would have.
And
It was not, unlike Silence of the Lambs, Jonathan Demme didn't leave any holes, and so that's a good example of.
Get out of
Jonathan
here.
Demme had no holes.
Look, believe women, even if they say they're being chased by an invisible man. We're gonna move on now to its comparative film, which actually I think my friend Nate was the one who suggested this, but we decided
I was totally on board for this.
to go with Gaslight, 1944, not to be confused with the 1940 British version.
Yes.
This was back in the age when Hollywood said, oh, people in America, ignore the Brits. They go fuck themselves. I know World War II is happening.
Actually,
this sucks, but we're going to remake
story.
their movie.
MGM tried to have all copies of the 1941 destroyed.
Wow.
And the only reason they didn't have it destroyed is because some of the reels were mislabeled with the title of the stage play it was based on.
That's right. Mislabel your
reels. The reason that
reels.
1941 still exists.
Yeah. So Gaslight, to let everybody, so just to tune everybody into what we're talking about, is a new song by the Dixie Chicks that came out right before coronavirus.
Oh, dude, do not mess with the Dixie Chicks.
What? Gaslighter! What a good time for us to see this movie. It's called Gaslight. She's talking about Gaslighter. The phrase Gaslighter comes from this script. This really the play.
This did coin the phrase, yeah.
Yeah. So here's what it's about. I'll just read it actually. So years after her aunt was murdered in her home, come on, man, in the middle of the synopsis. Years after her aunt was murdered in her home, a young woman moves back into the house with her new husband. However, he has a secret that he will do anything to protect, even if it means driving his wife insane. So the reason it's called Gaslight is because
2/3 of the movie.
They gave away 2/3 of the movie, and they really held him out to dry.
It doesn't suffer for it though.
Yeah. Anyway, so she keeps noticing that the stove gas keeps going up and down, and he keeps saying she's going crazy. So what the movie's about is she thinks she's going insane, but really, he, the guy probably, or somebody in the house, is driving her insane and making her think she's crazy when really she was right all along. That is where the phrase gaslighter came from, which is why it's our comparison to Invisible Man. Boom. Who wants to start? Anybody? Dave? John?
Sure.
Go.
This was Angela Lansbury's first film.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, not a big role. She's a supporting role, but
she's
yes,
a supporting
for sure.
actress. First film and first Oscar nomination as well.
Yeah, she was 17 when she booked it.
Yeah, she was really annoying. in a way that she's meant to be.
She has never looked 17.
Yeah, it was fun it was kind of fun to watch this movie in knowing that everybody got nominated for an Oscar for this movie this year, the year it was released. There were some exceptional performances for the time. I don't think that acting style carries through to modern day, so it is you really have to cast your mind back if you're going to watch this. But there were some great moments. There's a great drinking game to play during this film is to count the amount of times a gaslight turns up on screen.
Yeah.
You'll be drunk in the first 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually a really solid story. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. I kind of went in cause I'm not, I have something with old films. It's just they don't make them like they used to. No, they don't for a reason.
Drink,
buzz.
All right,
buzz.
But I did actually really enjoy this and ended up sitting there glued to the screen to watch. And I think it's actually a really valid film to watch if you want to see how it was done back in the 40s.
Right. And Ingrid Bergman, who was the lead, is amazing.
Also, yeah, she was amazing. Also, the fact that this issue was studied back in the 40s is amazing to me as well.
What do you mean? It was studied.
The fact that there was art about men gaslighting women. Not that it was known as gaslighting at the time.
What did they used to call it?
Deliberately mistreating women.
Terrible.
I know at the point
what they called it was being a man.
At the point it was a plot device, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that classic. There's a tactic he uses all the time, which we definitely see in older movies and older books, and it is not pointed out, obviously, in the way it's pointed out in this, where the man keeps insisting that she's not well, that she's sick, and she needs to stay in the house, and she needs to not be around other people, and he's encouraging her to begin doubting decisions she's made, and he hides things from her and tells her that she's losing these things. Yeah, I mean, just these terrible tactics to try to control the woman.
Full-on emotional manipulation, yeah.
Yeah. I will say, I know what you mean about the presentational style of acting, but, every now and then there were stars back then who could cut through the fat And even if there were parts of the elements of the performance that still had that heightened kind of performing kind of thing, as opposed to like realistic style acting, Ingrid Bergman is absolutely the great and powerful, just a force to reckon with. It was fun to watch her in her career as she got older, and she seamlessly adjusted to the new style of acting. And you can see elements of it in this. Her breakdown at the end, when she takes her power back from that guy, that final speech she gives when she's alone with him, and you think that, I don't know if she's going to kill him. I don't know if she's going to break down and cry, if she's going to play this victim thing. She fucking took all of the power back, and it was so powerful. And it didn't feel like you were watching the heightened performance thing that you were watching her have to do with some of the rest of the film.
No, that was the most real part of the film.
Yeah, and she just and it just
I do also like that. Like, she researched that role as well. She like sat with women who'd had nervous breakdowns and stuff like that, and one in particular, and studied them as such to develop her performance so it was realistic.
Yeah, I mean, what, Jeff? You about to say something?
Yeah, no, I have thoughts. Yeah, for sure. This is a very golden agey movie, but with a twist, which is cool. So the sets. The costumes are huge. And honestly, a lot of the writing is very, very interesting. I think when she's traveling, so Ingrid Bergman's character is going back to this house that she hasn't been at since her aunt was killed when she was 14. So now she's supposed to be 18. I mean, she looks 35, but she's supposed to be a young woman. And it's like her time to get married, which means she finds a man and they're going to get married within 6 weeks. What I would say is I actually liked the movie less than I thought I was going to. It sucks, damn it, fuck! I had to say it. I didn't mean to. No, I don't mean to be so blunt about it. I'm
going to keep buzzing until you pick that beer up.
It's okay. Hold on. First things first. I was ready for Angela Lansbury because I knew this was her debut. Also, she's never going to be that type. Angela Lansbury's type is never going to be a maid again in the future. So I was like, Angela Lansbury's character. She's too proper.
You've seen Beauty and the Beast, right?
Yeah, but she was an 80-year-old. That's different. Okay, anyway.
Same character. It's just
she hasn't aged since then, by the way. She hasn't aged since 1991 or 2. Okay, wait. Hold on. So she's on the train, and I love the scene with the lady. She's just this random lady just goes, oh! And she's reading a book, and she's reacting out loud to reading a book. Yeah. And
I know what you're about to say. I know what you're about to say.
Ingrid Bergman goes, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I love a good death. I love a good murder. And she's like talking about this like murder mystery she's writing. And I was like, this is such a cool scene. This is such a good way of opening the story. The reason the movie wasn't for me, in it, like, now that we know what gaslighting is, that the guy is going to be suspicious. They lay it on so thick that it's like almost unbearable to watch. Every single time. I'm sorry. God damn it. Well, you watch the movie for her, not for him. But every time she goes, oh, I found a letter. And he goes, what letter? Give me that letter. Give me that letter. What are you talking about? Let me see that letter. And it's like, oh, the letter. Oh, it's nothing. Oh, it's not. And you're just sitting there and you're like, man, we're 20 minutes into this movie and you are laying on your hand way too thick right now. So I know that's not the point of the movie, but it's
I feel
kind
like
of
that
like
reaction was justified.
It's
but,
not. It's
anyway.
melodrama, dude. It's not. I mean, there has to be style involved.
Also, like, just one thing. Would you like the one big plot hole I found in this movie? It was like, I would not take a biscuit from Bloodthirsty Betty.
That's right. Bloodthirsty Betty. God damn it. No, that's good. But hold on. The big thing is Ingrid Bergman, though, because watching her slowly go insane, and then her redemption scene at the end, which Invisible Man, we didn't really talk too much about it, but it doesn't have the payoff that this has. This is like the payoff in this. The line from this movie, the famous line. So I'm not going to spoil much, but the famous line in this movie is basically she knows she's gone mad at this point, and she knows that it was his fault. That's a spoiler. Oops. She says, if I wasn't mad, I could have helped you. If I wasn't mad, I could have protected you. But because I am mad, I hate you. Because I am mad, I have betrayed you. And because I am mad, I'm rejoicing in my heart without a shred of pity, without a shred of regret, watching you go with glory in my heart. Like, that is such a badass line for somebody to say, especially in 1944. The way Ingrid Bergman says that, it's like... I mean, that is like she won an Oscar for this, and she probably won because of that one scene. It was
so many
great.
Oscars. Like, it won an Oscar for set decoration.
Yeah. Well, the set was awesome. I mean,
they also, as she got more manic all the way through, they clutter up the set more.
Yep.
Right.
They literally modified the set depending on her emotional state.
Anything in that golden age, they just, because they were pumping out like machines, nothing was independent. all these movies were just airtight. So whether or not you enjoy the style or something like that, there's never there's not enough time for you to get like bored or to realize, oh, I don't think I like this. You can even say like, I'm not digging this, and it's still, the story moves so tightly that forward that you can still find something to enjoy about it. She said two of my favorite lines, again, just proving that Ingrid, she had the goods the whole time, and there were moments where it would sneak in and they were quiet and they were not that performing thing. One of the first scenes when she's working with a maestro in voice lessons, and he's calling her out because he can tell she's distracted and she's not thinking. And he finally asks her, he says, "Are you in love?" And she just so quietly says, yes, it's something that has never happened to me before. And it's just so grounded and so realistic.
Yeah.
And then
she's good.
I think my favorite moment in the whole movie is when that scene on the train, when she's meeting the old lady and she's telling her about that murder mystery she's reading. And the woman's like, oh, it's about these people who marry this man. And the woman that marries the man, and she finds out, believe it or not, that there are 6 of his wives are buried in the cellar. And Ingrid Bergman just says, that seems a lot. And it's just,
there were
so
giant
grounded. It was
steaming
so
piles
personal.
of foreboding all the way through the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
And yet,
it was fun.
And yet, I think
It was fun.
Ingrid's performance saved it, because it didn't slip into the traps of all that foreboding, because she was so grounded in her performance. It wasn't her leaning into the melodrama of that. She waited until she had no choice but to join the melodrama. Like 45 minutes into it.
Yeah.
So I liked it.
All right.
It was cool.
I
I
think
really don't have much else to say
if
about
you
it.
want
I think
to, if you want to, it's worth a rent. If you're
I will say,
stuck and you want to go back to
I
a
will say
classic,
this-
it's absolutely worth a rent.
I will say this very quickly, just to give her some redemption. She had that amazing scene at the end, which definitely brought her back. But the next movie that Ingrid Bergman made was Hitchcock's Spellbound, which is fun because she got to reverse her roles. She played a psychiatrist who was helping a man realize he wasn't crazy. So it was cool that in her career, that whoever gave her the opportunity, if she chose it, her representation, it's cool that she got to go back and forth. So she got her power back at the end of this one, and then she got to play the person in control the next time. It was great.
Yeah.
I mean, she almost didn't do this movie.
Who?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, and I think somebody else passed on it, right? I don't even think she was the first offer.
Well, I mean, somebody else passed on it, and then they lent her over to do the movie.
Oh, she was in MGM?
No, she was with another studio at the time.
Wow. I think she was 29 when she did this one.
Selznick lent her over.
Well, shout out. So we had Elizabeth Moss as our leading lady in the other film. Ingrid Bergman, 3 Academy Awards for acting. You know who has 3 Academy Awards for acting? Like 5 people.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson, Daniel Day-Lewis, Katharine Hepburn, Walter Brennan.
And probably Elizabeth Moss this year, because it's the only film that's going to be in cinemas by the end
Oh,
of the
and
year.
Meryl Streep. Duh. Meryl Streep just got her 3rd. So it's like, that's it. So she truly is in the pantheon of great actresses, and this is one of her career-defining performances.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm resettling back. And to be fair, the guy, her husband, is a supporting role, even though I think he laid on way too thick. And then he's in public being like, I don't know who that person is, because he's playing a whatever.
Big picture.
Anyway, it was
big
great.
picture. Last thought, just to show how far we've come. Who has to save Ingrid Bergman? A man. Who saves Elizabeth Moss? Elizabeth Moss. So I thought that, it's cool that we've come into this place. She did not need another man to save her from this and to justify her reality. She fucking took her life into her own hands. So it was cool that they kind of tweaked that a little bit.
All right, that's a great
Really
bookend
good.
to move on.
Yeah, so when we come back, we will be talking about our next film, Gavin O'Connor's The Way Back.
And we're back! Wow. How was your break, guys?
Felt really
It was
good.
good. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Got some more beer. Feeling
I
good.
went outside. No, I didn't.
I was looking at my notes really quickly. I just want to throw this in there. I was trying to get my parents to give us a rating and a review. We're trying to get this podcast going. And my dad gave us first he made a mistake and gave us a 1-star rating.
Great.
And then he gave us a 2.
Yeah.
And then he gave us a 3. And he said, fuck this. And he just stopped trying.
We're getting better and better. We're improving over time, right?
Yeah, we average out at 2. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad. It's really
Great.
good.
What's it like drinking by yourself since we're not together doing this? What's it like we're just in a room with headphones on drinking?
This is basically what all New Yorkers are doing right now,
This
with or
is
without a
social
podcast.
distancing. This counts.
That's right.
Yeah.
This
My
is
liquor
not
store had
alcoholism.
no deals. My liquor store is like, no, we're capitalizing on this. We're making money.
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sure they went up.
Oh, bless them.
All right. So,
I mean,
as we mentioned,
speaking of alcoholism,
so we decided to drink beer while talking about a movie about alcoholism. So this is The Way Back by Gavin O'Connor. As Jesus, man, every time. God damn it. So this is a movie by Gavin O'Connor as director. Brad Inglesby is a writer, and it stars Ben Affleck, who decided to gain weight and a beard for life, and then cast himself in a movie that would be appropriate.
Drink!
Um,
Drink, you bastard.
I know. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
asshole.
All right. So anyway, so the movie.
I can see you, Jeff. You haven't picked up
By
the
the way,
beer. Pick up
guys,
the
are we
beer.
running out of titles? I feel like there was a movie called The Way Back. There was one in 2010. So every 10
there's
years,
like 4
it's
of them.
like The Way Back. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
I
here's
think
what it's
one of them
about.
had dogs.
So Ben Affleck plays a character with a generic white name because his name is Ben Affleck, and that's who he is. So Jack Cunningham, could you come up with a more generic name? Sorry.
Oh, we can't even get through the summary.
Drink the beer, Jeff.
Drink,
he
you
was-
bastard.
see
Drink,
you.
goddammit,
I
drink.
can see you.
So he was a high school basketball phenom who decided not to take the full scholarship to Kansas because this movie's unrealistic. That's bullshit. You get a full ride to Kansas, you go! God, okay. I'm sorry.
Jeff, he spent a lot of time hurting himself. Did you not watch the movie?
The
Guys.
best intro ever.
This movie could not decide if it was a Disney movie or if it was The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke. You know,
Mickey,
it's like
yeah.
hard and like does drugs and has sex in a bathroom. It's like, was it Disney or is it that? It couldn't decide. Okay, so he walked away from the game 20 years before the movie takes place, became an alcoholic construction worker, and then reluctantly accepts a job coaching at his alma mater, which is a Catholic school, which doesn't like his cursing and yelling at kids and calling them pussies. What would you guys think of the movie? Let's start with John.
Give a couple. There is an important fact. It is given. It's not a spoiler. You learn it fairly quickly that he is separated from his wife. They are not fully divorced yet. After they lost their child to, I don't know if it was leukemia or some kind of cancer, which is a big part about it. Is that
True.
he apparently, had dealt with drugs and stuff before because he had so many issues with his father, which is why he walked away from the game. Then he walked away from the game after he realized his dad only really loved him for that. Then he got involved with drugs. Then apparently he got with his wife and everything was okay. And then we meet
All
him
bold choices
after
for
all
a
that
family
happened.
comedy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Family comedy. That's what this is. All right. This is one of those movies. You know what they're trying to do from the beginning. They're going to try to make you feel things. This is going to be men get emotional in this movie. You're going to watch men get emotional. It's going to be that kind of thing. It is also a bit of the comeback story with the sports. He does get called back to start coaching a high school team where he used to go, kind of builds his life back around that. Although what I did appreciate about this movie is that it's not even mostly that. Not only is it not only that, it's not mostly that. This movie stays with the point of view of Ben Affleck's character the whole time. It doesn't go too into depth with the supporting characters of the boys on the basketball team. You learn some things about them to give you enough context so that they become human. But I will agree with you guys. It sounds like none of us were as... I think we all wanted to like this movie more than we ended up liking.
I liked it more than
like
my
Gavin
review at the
O'Connor's movies.
Yeah, me too.
What? Say that again?
I liked it more than my intro, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, Gavin O'Connor also directed Warrior, which I love that movie. And it's a very similar kind of thing. It was just dealing with drug abuse and past physical and emotional abuse from bad parenting situations. There's a lot of violence in it, but it's about these men trying to become better versions of themselves. So he likes to tell these stories, and he's got a big heart, clearly. I do appreciate anyone who tries to make emotional movies these days because we're just such a jaded society. So I went in really wanting to appreciate this more. There are a lot of montages of Ben getting drunk. Like, there's a lot of these things where they kind of really try to hit it over the head and make you realize just how broken this guy is. And I thought that it actually ended up being one of the downfalls. I'll have a drink on that one. Because the best parts of this movie were best parts of this movie were when you saw him struggling with the relationships with other people. It wasn't the montages when he's alone at the end of the night and he's just pounding beer. You know, you need one or two of those, I guess, maybe probably just one in a film like this, just to really solidify so the audience knows this guy fucking drinks all the time, especially when he's alone. However, the real struggle and the obstacles and the conflict and everything, the richest part of this stuff was when he was having to face the world because he had removed himself from it for so long. I'll also say one positive thing before we start tearing it to pieces.
Oh, no.
I appreciated the structure. I am a huge proponent. I will always say this. Generally speaking, if a movie has a really good ending, I can forgive a lot of the problems for it. I'm not saying this was the greatest ending in the world, but again, like I was saying, I like that it didn't follow him in a classic structure of this kind of comeback movie with sports and coaching. It didn't follow him back to their final game, and he wasn't on the floor screaming and hooting and hollering as they sealed the final shot. This movie's ending, without giving any hardcore details away, it cuts it in half. It reminded me of some of the Friday Night Lights stuff. Ben stays away from the game, and it actually had a really strong emotional impact on me. You have been waiting the whole time for him to relate to these other people, and it made an interesting turn. He finally realized at the end that he had to make peace with himself. And I know that sounds like such a cliche, but they had gone against that for the whole movie, and it was working in a lot of interesting ways. So at the very end, when it's finally just him alone, back with the basketball in his hand, I don't know. It redeemed itself a little bit for me. It still was not as enjoyable as I wanted it to be, but I appreciated the fact that they subverted the structure, and it actually had a stronger impact than if he would have been at the game cheering on his kids and crying over them winning a fucking tournament or whatever.
And there was good stuff in this movie for sure, and it was a good ending for sure. Dave, what do you think?
Get that buzzer ready, you motherfucker. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to start with that.
Yeah, fuck you and your fucking buzzer. Dave has no heart. He is made of stone. Go ahead, Dave.
Do not watch this film while self-isolating.
What?
Do not watch this film while you're self-isolating.
I need more context. I need more. Is it the drinking? What is it?
It will drive you into the
Dave
ground.
went fucking Howard Hughes, watching alone naked with long fingernails.
A fucking alcoholic by the end of this movie. Like, I started wishing for basketball.
Cheers.
Did you drink as many beers as he drank that one night? That remember he like leaves quickly and then he goes home. I'm pretty sure he drank 30 beers and a fifth of vodka on the same night.
I'm going to drink as many fucking beers during talking about this as he
keeps on hitting it.
Yeah, he does the collegiate hit the thing like he's like a bro in college.
Every time we got away from the sports, I was like, I'm watching 90 minutes of Ben Affleck scene studies.
Your sports were the favorite part of this movie?
Yeah. I started praying for the basketball.
Honestly, okay. Well, I really didn't dislike the movie that as much as I let on at the beginning. Although, here's what I would say. So I grew up playing sports. We all grew up playing sports. If you're a real sports fan and seen all the sports movies, there are some things about this that are great. Like him getting to know the team, calling plays, coaching on the sidelines. Like, all that stuff's good. There's things like they say a line in the movie like, oh, we called up 2 guys from JV. Do you see a single person? Do you see the JV team? Do you see any other? There are 20 people at this game. This school does not have a JV team. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of sports elements about this movie that ultimately, it's like Ben knows basketball. Ben could do this now. He could coach a basketball team right now. I believed that, and it just sort of, I couldn't tell if they were making this movie as a nostalgia piece for like our dads. Or if they wanted it to be a gritty movie for our generation to watch. I don't know what maybe they didn't care about the demo, obviously, when they make the film. Okay, cool. But there were a couple times you knew Ben was trying to be sincere, and I don't think he was laying it on too thick. You knew in the back of his mind he thought maybe he could get an Oscar nom under the right situations. You knew that was in there somewhere. And of course, spoiler.
He hasn't done something like this in a long time.
Spoiler, he's not going to. But it was heartfelt and everything. You could tell sometimes, hey, I just said it was heartfelt. You could tell.
He said he's not going to get an Oscar nomination. That's nasty.
I've studied the Oscars for many years, and I will gnaw off. Never mind. Doesn't matter. He's not going to get one. I got you. They're you know why the Academy's going to hold stuff like this down. I'm going to spoil something because I don't give a fuck. There's some really nice heartfelt things where he has with the best player on the team who's not becoming the best player on the team because he's holding back. He's shy. He doesn't want to be a leader. And Ben basically is trying to force him to be a leader. And the kid turns to him and he's like, why weren't you a leader? And Ben goes, daddy issues. It was my dad's fault. I spited my dad. And I was like, go fuck yourself. Like, come on with that. You can't just say, I know. You can't just say, oh, daddy issues. And it's like, oh, that makes sense. Literary check. I can pass film school. Like, there are so many things about this movie that seem like...
Jeff, just lifting your beer up doesn't count. There are
some times where this movie really wants to be Hoosiers. It really, really does. It's a coach. The team's struggling. There are a couple good players. They're not going to win with talent. And, there's some things about it. It's like you want it to be Hoosiers. I wanted it to be Hoosiers. I wanted it really bad. It was never going to be. And then when he goes back to drinking and you see him by himself drinking, it's like, we get it. So for me, it wasn't that bad.
Really,
it was probably like a 7 or an 8. It's just not a great sports movie. It's not a great alcohol movie. It's not a great single person character study movie. It's just like a B+ at all of those.
I loved when he was on the court, because essentially I feel like he played two different characters. One of them was like a man who's lost in alcoholism, and the other one was a man who's found his passion again.
Yeah, and I believe that he could do that right now. I believed it.
Yeah, it was a charm to watch. It was amazing to watch. There was a little bit of levity in there and that sort of thing. But when they went into the alcoholism, they just lost me. It was just so repetitive and boring. No.
This movie's not a bad movie. Watch it with your dad.
Hold on, wait a second. Why did you hate give me more specifics.
Well, I don't know. It wasn't necessarily the alcoholism. It was the the dialogue in the first, I want to say 30 minutes of the film when he's just interacting with people was so clunky. It felt like everyone was improvising, but they hadn't really talked it through.
One thing, one relationship that bothered me, especially with that, because I agree with you. It was a lot of basic things that were only decent, that if they were better, they would have made it better, which I know that's fucking obvious, but the dialogue was not good some places. It could have been better, and it would have made all these little things better. There was some editing stuff that they were, again, I was trying to praise it for the way they subverted the typical structure of these movies, but it affected the pace negatively in the middle part of the movie a lot. And one relationship that should have been the biggest part of the foundation was him and his wife, who he's separated from. They only have a few scenes together, but they're super important. If we are not on board with their chemistry and their relationship, it's not gonna fucking matter at all. We're just gonna watch this guy hurting himself, which is not interesting. And I didn't feel like they had
the scenes with the wife were amazing. The scenes with the rest of the family, not
no.
So
I disagree. I felt like the wife, that first scene with the wife when he was waiting for outside of that picnic table at that restaurant, I felt like that was a really clunky scene, and I just didn't buy the pain that they were both in.
I didn't mind it. It was awkward. They played the more like, let's try to be. I didn't mind the awkwardness of it. In real life, it would probably be clunky, and also in real life, she would probably. Nobody ever orders food. How many times do people meet up in movies and then they leave before the waiter even gets to the table? I didn't mind it so much. I think throughout the whole film and looking back retrospect, maybe because they had maybe 4 scenes together, maybe there was more to be done there. But ultimately, I didn't mind the first meeting being awkward personally.
I mean, sometimes you sit down to dinner and Cuomo quarantines everyone, and then
you leave immediately. You put the bill. Yeah. You say thanks for the water. Out, not leaving you a tip. Sorry. Well, okay, wait, I have a question for you guys. So here's the thing, though, because people are going to watch this movie for Ben, right? Ben's the star. He's a huge star. If he wasn't in this movie, if it was Nick Kroll or somebody who wanted to do a serious movie, this would be a Sundance movie. But because it's Ben Affleck, now it's like a Hollywood movie. You have Ben Affleck, you have Gavin O'Connor, the director of Warrior, in this, and you have Brad Inglesby. Ben probably did the best job for his job out of the 3 of them, right? Like Ben with different guidance, with a slightly different script that didn't have, it's daddy-ish, didn't have stuff like that are just like Trap City, past film school, if you put this stuff in your script stuff. And the director, who is good, but he didn't know his tone. He didn't know what he wanted. How many times did he have to prove to us how broken Ben was? So ultimately, no, I know, okay, fine, but because
That
this
was
is going to be
negative, yeah.
because we're going to be watching this movie for Ben, I think people might actually take to it better than maybe we have, because he's doing everything right, and ultimately the most important thing is it's believable that he walks in there and is their basketball coach. Like, that element of it I can kind of buy a little bit. I can see him coaching a basketball team right now, just being thrown into the situation and doing it. I think he did a pretty good job with that.
I don't think the problem with this movie was Ben Affleck's performance.
Right, I think he did a fine
And
job.
I know that's an unpopular thing to say.
I can't put my finger on what it was, but it was like anything outside. Like, there was some gold moments for me, like the whole "get tough" speech and the resulting discussion on the bus afterwards, where he loses his mind, he's dropping f-bombs, and like one of the members of the school, like the priest from the school, comes up and says, you know, you really got to curb that. That whole scene for me like redeemed half the film.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
a
he's
I
great
agree.
scene.
He's one of those, you know, it's not.
The guy who was the guy who played that character. Do we have that?
The priest,
Yeah,
the one who keeps
look at
telling him to stop cursing.
he was the perfect straight man to Ben Affleck.
No, you're talking about Al Madrigal.
You're talking about Al Madrigal, who's the assistant coach.
Yeah.
He's.
I liked when he said. I liked when he said.
Or are you talking about Jeremy Radin played Father Mark Whelan, who was the one who kept telling him, you know, we have a code of conduct, you can't curse.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, he was the perfect straight man to like whenever Ben Affleck lost it, and that really worked for me.
That worked. I like the assistant coach though. I thought that guy did really well. I loved at the end when he was like.
He also did really well.
When he was like, I know this is bad, but I really want to fucking beat those guys.
But there were a lot of good performances in it.
I know it's not. I know it's not popular
I'm still
to.
just pissed at Ben Affleck for Daredevil.
So I know it's not popular. I know it's not a popular thing to say to praise Ben Affleck. I feel like he's gotten some flack for you know, he's not a super likable type. Like,
Right, that's
if we're not going to get involved with any of the personal stuff, anything with him or Matt or Casey or anything in their private life, just based on the acting and the type and stuff, he isn't super likable. So I do have respect for him. I have enjoyed what joke you made at the beginning. I have enjoyed the 20 pounds extra weight, usually with a beard, usually playing the burly. He's been leaning into the fact that he has an asshole type, and I think since Gone Girl. And his films, even The Town and stuff, I feel like he's been leaning into it in this latter stage of his career, and it's working for me. So
I'm one of the few people on Earth
enjoyable.
who really thought he was a great Batman.
Yeah, he just exudes Hollywood leading man, but at the same time, relatable neighborhood. Like, you almost can see how he was raised, right? Even though we know because of Good Will Hunting and stuff, but he seems relatable. Even though, like, with Gone Girl, a lot of people gave him crap for Gone Girl. How many people really could have pulled off Gone Girl like that? You know what I mean? Like, that
Gone Girl
presence
was
that you have to
good.
have. Yeah. Anyway, we don't need to keep talking about Gone Girl, but for this movie to play a former, like, should have been pro basketball, whatever. Even though I think that was a little clunky, he turned down a scholarship to Kansas. Like, that's like kind of weird, right? That's just like people who are sports fans and follow sports. It just doesn't happen. It's weird. But I believe him because he's the guy. I believe he's that guy.
So overall, the movie was pretty good. Ben Affleck was good. Yeah, give it a shot if you want to. It's definitely a feel-good movie. You will have some emotional catharsis.
That also announced is dropping next week on video on demand, so you can pick
you'll
it
get
up.
that soon. Yeah,
This is also
because
just
they
to
were
point
expecting
this
to make
out.
some money. God, that's so annoying for them.
Just to point this
know,
out,
right?
this is one of those movies that had a great trailer.
Yeah,
This movie had a very emotional trailer. Bon Iver's Heavenly Father song is playing in the background. It was well cut. I felt like it was honestly, part of it was kind of a little bit of a letdown. I know we're in the first quarter still of the year, so they tend to release like not their best everything, you know, their ace in the hole or whatever. But my hopes were a little bit higher because I was so impressed with the trailer. So once again, that happens every now and then with big Hollywood movies where they present something in a trailer that's not quite what you're going to get. And I don't think this was exactly what they were trying to make it seem. This was not the Mighty Ducks for adults.
It's almost like they wanted it to be The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, back to what I was saying before. And then they were like, that's too hard.
Yeah.
That's too hard. We need to be a little bit more family friendly.
And I wish they would have gone
The Mighty
the
Ducks
wrestler
if
route.
you want people to kill themselves, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a rated
All
R.
right,
Marty
the way
Ducks.
back.
It was
Dave
a rated
hated
R.
this fucking movie. All right, we're going to move on. The next movie we're going to be talking about is a wild card. Of course, we always compare things and say, what do you guys want to work on? And I threw out a few ideas. We tossed around a few silly ones. we decided to go for a little bit of a wild card with this one. We were doing Tony Scott's Man on Fire, starring Denzel Washington. Take your Dramamine before you watch this film.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
So this
I think
movie
this
is about what would it take for a guy to put a bomb in another guy's asshole. That's what this movie really is, in a nutshell. I mean, there's some,
that scene is probably the best scene of the movie.
That's a question Hollywood's needed answered for a long time.
So
that
first
scene
things first,
is the shit, dude.
Tony Scott, who directed Top Gun and Enemy of the State and a million other films you've seen.
I forgot he directed Top Gun.
Yeah,
Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide. Yeah. So I mean, he's worked with everybody and their mother. Ridiculous. Anyway, so this is Denzel Washington with shout out to Christopher Walken. I already have my first question in mind for you guys, but anyway, so what this is really about is this takes place in Mexico City, and what it's about is so Denzel is a former CIA operative who doesn't work in government anymore. So he's working as a very expensive bodyguard because very wealthy people all over the world, but especially in Mexico and in Latin America, they hire very expensive bodyguards because people will kidnap kids for ransom money, not because they want to do anything to the kids. They just want ransom money. It's usually around $10 million, which is what it is in this film. And actually big like CEOs and big, hedge fund investors, they have insurance. So in a way, the person who's doing the kidnapping is like, look, your insurance is going to pay for this anyway. I'm going to kidnap your child, take the insurance as ransom money. But Denzel is the bodyguard protecting this. And the person he's defending is Dakota Fanning. And Dakota Fanning gets kidnapped. Spoiler, but that's what the movie's about.
Dakota and in her prime too.
Yeah. And then Denzel gets so mad about that he takes out vengeance, and he basically Kill Bill style, shout out to episode 2 of our podcast, tries to go and seek vengeance on every single person who harmed her. My first question is
wait. One important detail.
Yeah.
The reason we compared it to The Way Back is because he was struggling with alcoholism.
Oh yes, alcoholism, and also it's a redemption movie. I mean, he's trying to get his
that's why he takes the bodyguard job, because he literally says nobody wants to hire me for anything else because I'm a drinker.
Similar to The Way Back, he says the thing that nobody should ever say in a script, but they're always in scripts, which is, why can I afford you if you're former CIA? Why are you a bodyguard? And he said, well, I'm an alcoholic, I drink, and I'm a risk. And it's like, that would probably never be said in real life. But otherwise, this is a really good movie. My first question to you guys is...
I actually dug that line.
Whatever. My first line to you guys is Dakota Fanning the best child star of all time? Is she the greatest actress of all time? She was so good in this movie. She's so good in I Am Sam, which is pretty much what got her this movie.
Is she the greatest child star of all time? Podcast. I mean,
she's so good in this movie. You watch this movie because when she gets I'm sorry, it's a spoiler. If I have any fault to say in this movie up front, it's the movie is about him seeking vengeance, but she doesn't get kidnapped for an hour in the movie. But it's both good and bad. It's good and bad because you fall in love with her. He becomes friends with her. I know that's what the movie's about. The movie is not about a man who wants to be redeemed.
I put this in the same vein as Rocky, though. Like, Rocky is famous for the inciting incident. It doesn't happen until 45 to an hour into the film.
I'm not hating on this movie. This movie was fine. It was
the inciting incident does not happen until an hour into the film. You get to know these two characters, you get to see them bond, and then when the incident happens, you feel more because of that.
The movie's awesome. If you want a kick-ass movie,
you are going to get like an hour of Dakota Fanning really tugging on your fucking heartstrings.
I mean, she is so good in this movie. This movie, the second half of this movie is one of the best.
Perfect playoff for this.
It is one of the best kick-ass movies, and like the second half is one of the best like fuck yeah movies you could possibly have. It takes a while to get there, but Dakota Fanning is just a dream. She's an angel sent from above. It
takes a while to get there deliberately.
She is so good. She's not even acting. You can tell Denzel is sitting there going like, holy shit, man, I don't even know if I'm in a scene right now or if this is just real life. She's so good. Anyway, I thought this movie was really fun, just a little too long. John, what do you think?
Do I buzz Jeff for disparaging Denzel?
I'm not disparaging Denzel.
No, I mean, I like this movie. I like Tony Scott. Tony Scott is Ridley Scott's brother, for anyone who doesn't know. So yeah, he did True Romance. That was one of my favorite movies. It's one of Quentin Tarantino's first produced scripts. Crimson Tide, The Fan, Top Gun, Beat the Devil, Man on Fire, Deja Vu, Domino, Unstoppable, Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3. So this is I think this is the second time him and Denzel worked together. So they were muses for each other. It's one of those special relationships. They loved working together, clearly. And I think this is one of the first times we saw Denzel play this I'm going to kill everybody role. And I like him in these parts. Because I mean, he hadn't done Equalizer yet. He hadn't done
John
Deja
Q.
Vu is after this. John Q. I mean, even John Q is not about that. Dude, that's when he's the father who's trying to get his child. Isn't that what that plot is for John Q?
He's
it's a father whose child.
Yes, and the Negotiator too. Yeah, all those movies where he's just like playing
anyway.
that power position guy.
Yeah. So obviously, this is just one of those things. You always feel like you're in safe hands when you know a director and an actor who love working together are doing their thing. They have that unspoken language, and this character is just quintessential Denzel. He's got a big problem. There's a big, massive obstacle that's kind of defining his character. And it doesn't get in the way of him achieving the kick-ass that is necessary to achieve. He's willing to sacrifice everything. There is not a happy ending. Ultimately, like for his character, this is about there's a kind of atonement that comes throughout this entire thing.
A happy ending.
I mean, yeah, there's an atonement, but it's not. I
felt
everybody.
like he achieved what he needed to achieve.
Yeah, it was sad though, right? It's not. It wasn't. Again, spoiler alert. Don't want to give anything away, but. Not everybody comes back at the end of this one. But there is anyway, this his relationship with Tony Scott, I feel like you can just see it. I feel like it's just palpable. The first half of this movie that you're talking about, when it's just storytelling, there is no crazy action.
It's nice.
Yeah,
they have many. It's just scene work, and I think it's impressive when you think of somebody like Tony Scott who makes big action movies. People like Michael Bay copy his cinematography all the time with moving cameras and stuff. So you think of him from a distance as spectacle. And yet he makes movies like this where he consistently pushes characters to the front of the story for at least 40 minutes to the first hour of each film. Most of this movie at the first half is just scene work. And it's usually intimate scene work between one or two characters. You have a chance to actually care about everybody before shit goes crazy. And using the cinematography, it's so nice
definitely
that
a movie
he creates
where you appreciate the acting performance.
Yeah, and he creates a language. He has a language with his cinematography. He likes moving cameras. I heard Quentin Tarantino in a podcast where he was talk about how Tony Scott likes to set up lots of cameras. And he likes to have lots of different moving footage to pick from, and then they edit things together like crazy. He's not working with a single camera.
Cutting.
But the reason this works is because
we'll talk about that later.
I think the reason it works. I had it written down. Yeah.
I think the reason it works is because the language he uses to introduce the movie and to develop the characters, the language in the cinematography doesn't change when the kick-ass stuff begins. So it didn't feel like
it's all over the fucking shop.
You don't like that?
All over the place. They like go to these like heavily colored, high contrast, jerky images and occasionally it has meaning, but occasionally they're doing it for no reason whatsoever.
Well, they're doing it because he's an alcoholic and he has this disillusionment. Is what it seems like.
Well, no, that scene I got, but like there's certain scenes on the street where it just shifts into that mode. Yeah, like it wants to seem all over the shop, and it's
hectic and chaotic on purpose. I just don't know if it lands.
That was the only thing I didn't like about the film. Okay, yeah, cool.
Well, tell us about what you do like. You don't have to jump in on something negative. What did you like about the film, Dave?
I mean, I loved the character work. I loved Dakota and Denzel on the same scene anytime they were there. I actually like this a lot. I mean, take some C6 tablets before you watch it, but like the story builds in the like literally everyone is a subject, like a suspect. So you have no idea who's actually behind this until it gets to the reveal. Yeah, because like at some point they literally point everyone out, and it's like, okay, who the fuck is behind this? Yeah.
I also like the heat.
And like, I really did like the build. The only thing that threw me off was the occasional random scenes where it just went to like the high contrast jerky stuff for no adequately explained reason.
Especially, and John, I'll let you finish your thought, but just to that point, and what they would do too is they would play audio from earlier in the movie, but they weren't doing like a Citizen Kane, like recapping the movie, like it was basically just like, here's an audio grab from the first scene, here's an audio grab from the second scene, over these weird like disillusionment montages. I don't know if they landed for me, even though I think I knew what they were going for, but it was kind of like, okay, can we get to the killing and the bomb in the asshole or what? Anyway, that's just me. John, go ahead, sorry.
This is
Yeah,
also
great
one of the
movie.
first. This is also one of the first movies when he really started messing with that style, Tony Scott. And I think you can see over the 2010s, he really masters it by the time he gets to Pelham 1, 2, 3 and Unstoppable. It's still similar stuff,
Oh,
and
Unstoppable.
it's way more
Yeah.
digestible.
That's fine, but like for this movie, it was a little bit.
I think
like,
it's
it threw you off a little.
yeah. It's
I feel
know
like
what
it could
you
have
mean.
done without it.
Yeah, it's always refreshing though when you have. I feel like to praise Denzel just a little bit more.
Right.
When you're in a world where his character has to see justice in black and white. I mean, he's going from 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. I feel like that's one of those action movie cliches where I think a lot of actors and people who think about acting from a distance think that has to be easy because it's one-liners and it's things like that. To build up a point of view and have a realistic human being seeing the world in that kind of black and white when
Right.
they themselves are caught in the conflict, that is way more difficult and complex than anybody gives you credit for. So once again, Tony Scott and Denzel Washington made an action movie, and I thought that this was an example of whether or not we like the cinematography and stuff. This is much more than a Michael Bay movie. This is much more than, some of the crappier big giant spectacles
Oh,
of people
it's
who tried to
definitely better than
copy
Michael
Tony
Bay movie.
Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I would say is the feature he made before this, the previous feature right before Man on Fire, was Spy Game. And I think those elements of the whodunit, like what do you believe, what don't you believe, were more successful in Spy Game than this. I think this, it was just a little jarring. And even though I think it was something about the alcoholism, something about him not knowing what was going on and trying to put the pieces together, it seems a little... I don't know in 2020 where we are right now. I don't know if he would do it the same way. It seemed clunky, and it would probably be more polished. I think if he did it today. That's what
I feel like it's also I know what you mean. I do think there was something. It almost didn't feel like a movie. It felt like a kinetic, frenetic experience. Like
This
it
would be
didn't
a
feel
great
like it.
two-part series. Same thing with Kill Bill. If they stopped it at the kidnapping and then the second half was like just the badass vengeance-seeking thing, it's like Kill Bill but flipped.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, if I watch this whole movie and the only criticism I have is, a minute and a half of cinematography,
Yeah,
it's a damn good movie, and
No,
you
this
should really
is
check
great,
it
right.
out.
you're right.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Sweet.
Cool. So yeah, we're gonna wrap up that segment. That was Tony Scott's Man on Fire. When we come back, we are going to be talking about our next segment. How the fuck did they do that?
How the fuck they do that?
All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. We're
We're back.
back to the pod. We are back for our favorite segment when filmmaker extraordinaire Dave Green, sorry, John. Dave Green is going to walk us through a segment we like to call How the Fuck Did They Do That?
How the fuck do they do that? Also, extraordinaire is a tad, on the nose. I mean,
You don't like it? It's not for you? It's not your favorite description?
I've done some stuff,
Done some stuff? Am I hyping you up too much, too little, or just too... Doesn't matter. Okay, anyway.
I mean,
Sounds like the traveling salesman version of a filmmaker.
Here, buy these visual effects.
Extraordinaire. Passamaquoddy.
Are we keeping this in, or are we redoing this? What do you think?
No, we're going to keep this in.
Okay, I
That's
love
fine.
that. So, Dave, why don't you walk us through a How the Fuck Did They Do segment? What have you chosen for this week?
We were looking at Invisible Man.
Yeah, I thought that was
Because
going to
we
be
focused on that. And given two things, the budget, which was $7 million,
Yeah.
and the fact that it was entirely made in my home country, Australia. The guys down there did some amazing work on some of this stuff. In particular, I want to focus on the kitchen fight scene because Jeff
Yes, I did
at
ask.
one point,
And
how the fuck did they do that?
I figured most of it would be practical, but I'm not sure.
It's a mixture.
Really?
I researched the hell out of this. It was so hard to find at this point. I mean, once they release it on digital, I'm sure we'll get much more on how they did this.
Yeah.
But basically, what's coming out about from the director and from the visual effects guys that I could find, it's a combination of CGI, a guy in a green suit,
Awesome.
and pieces of string.
What? Oh, right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically they relied on whatever they needed for the time. In this case, like when a door needs to open, it's a PA hiding behind it with a piece of string pulling the door open.
That's cool.
In the case of like certain things like knives floating and stuff like that, it was CG. Or it was actually the knife that everyone will come to know as the knife. That was actually practical on set with string.
You're kidding me.
Like wire with wire removal, yeah.
I believe that, did it? It felt
From
like
what
that.
I could find, that was wire removal.
That was cool.
The kitchen
that was
scene,
cool.
which is my favorite, the kitchen scene was actually a 3-plate composite where they used a robotic head camera.
What is that?
So a robotic
Now,
head camera?
A robotic head camera. This thing is on a track. It moves lightning fast. You also would have seen it in the asylum when you watch this movie. You'll notice the technique because basically it moves really abruptly. So it will follow someone to the ground or it will follow an action. In the case of the fight scene in the kitchen, where I believe it's featured in the trailer, if I'm not mistaken, she's thrown over a table.
Yeah.
That was a combination of wire rigs, a green screen stunt performer, and this robotic head. So they shot this thing 3 times. So they shot it with the stunt actor, they shot it with her, and they shot it with a clean plate. And because it's a robotic head camera, it moves exactly the same every single time.
So you're saying, I don't understand how it could have been on tracks, because it was moving in different 3-dimensional spaces throughout the kitchen. Are you saying they broke up the filming of the scene?
No, they broke it up. The
Okay.
actual shot where she goes over the table is robotic head. The rest of it was like manual camera, but a lot of it was like you can if you look close, like you can see the robotic head working in the film because it's not normally the way a camera moves. And the big caveat with this is whenever an actor works with those, they have to give the same performance every single time. Like the stuntman has to lift her at the same time and push her against the wall and then throw her over the table at exactly the right moment. Otherwise, the camera gets out of sync with the action because it's pre-programmed. Because the action that you do in the third take with the actual stunt performer and the guy in the green screen, like the green suit, has to match the original plate that you shot.
Is it using laser sensors to follow something, or is it just filming blindly, which is why the people have to do the same movement?
Yeah, it's computer programmed to move from this point to this point to this point to this point. It also has a pan tilt head on it, so it can tip sideways, which is a shot you may remember from
she's on the ground.
The Asylum, which that really like fucking brutal one where the guy goes head first into the tiles.
Oh yeah.
And it's so basically your performance has to be spot on every single time.
Wait.
So that's one of the other things. After I researched this, why I gave this thing a little more credit, because the amount of synchronicity that had to go into this one shot is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And the stunt performers, again, I'm on the studies, but the stunt performers matched with the camera work, matched with like the acting performance, it all worked together with such synchronicity that it was flawless.
Yeah, shout out to the Stunnies, who was our how the fuck did they do this for Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, whatever the actual name is now of that movie.
I feel like they're gonna come up a lot.
They're gonna come up a lot for sure. Wait, question.
Yeah.
So I saw Cheer on Netflix recently, and they rehearsed their routine just by shouting out the counts. Do you think if they had to do it the exact same way 3 times that it involves stunts, that they were just shouting it out, or maybe had like an audio thing set on film and then they just put the sound in later? How do you think they were able to do they didn't just guess it and be like, gee, that felt quick. What do you think, right?
I mean, I feel like it was a lot of let's check playback. I don't know if they were actually counting on set for movements, but I mean, studies are usually really good about hitting their marks.
They just rehearsed it so well.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's a case of you tell a study, it's like hit. They will hit. I've worked on a set where I had to film a car screaming at me, and I had a stunt coordinator stand behind me with his his hand on my collar, ready to snap me out of the way. The car was literally skidding to a halt right next to me, and he was standing there just in case, ready to snap it out. And the first take didn't work, and so we did a second take, and the guy put the car in exactly the same place. These guys are used to hitting their mark.
Dave, do you have a life insurance policy?
I don't. Well, actually, I do now because I made union in New York recently, so yeah, I do now.
This fight,
my wife will be so happy about
That's
that.
right.
this fight made me think about the grizzly bear fight in The Revenant.
Interesting.
I think they probably ended up using similar techniques because I know they used a lot of live action wire stuff to move him, but then obviously the grizzly bear was CGI.
No, that was
Wait,
that was
what?
literally just DiCaprio. DiCaprio just fought a bear. That actually happened.
I've always appreciated that Naruto they've never let out how they did it. But when I was watching this scene for the Invisible Man, I remember thinking there had to be some similar techniques, and I knew at least some of it was practical. So that's cool.
I mean, the upshot is, if you've got a budget of $7 million, that was an absolutely perfect choice to bring in that camera, because you can create a clean plate shot of what you're doing. So your visual effects budget is halved because you don't have to roto these guys.
Yeah, that's
so
cool.
You can literally just go paint you out. Done.
Now, for those of our listeners who don't know what a clean plate is, explain what plates are.
A clean plate is basically you shoot the scene with no actors on set.
Right.
So that when the actors are on set, you put them in an effects program and you paint them out.
Oh, cool. That's cool. That sounds
But
like a pain in the ass on digital, but yeah.
Normally in Roto, you would have to paint around the outline of this person to remove them from the background. So if you have a clean plate shot, you can just go broad stroke, done. It halves your work.
And again, I would imagine they were cutting between the work with the clean plate, staying practical whenever possible, and only in the moves where she was flying or where there was a stunt were they cutting into the clean plate.
Yeah, they went practical as much as possible.
Yeah. Because the beginning part of the fight...
Funny story, from what I've read, the green suit was used a lot on set to actually put him in place.
Yeah, it looked like it must have been.
When she was acting opposite him, he was actually there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
though he was invisible.
Yeah. And I thought that was helpful for... Do you know if they did that? I know this is the only one we're talking about, this particular fight scene, but did they use these same techniques for some of the other fight scenes, or was that mostly practical?
Some of them. Occasionally, there were certain sections, even of the kitchen fight, where she was literally fighting nothing. It was literally just
so there were I mean, as amazing as there were a couple times.
Like I'm not kidding. It's like normally you go, okay, what was the CG for the Invisible Man? Oh, it was computers. But no, in this case it was CG. It was the actor's performance. Sometimes it was a guy in green screen, and sometimes it was pieces of string, and sometimes it was absolutely nothing. But
I'm so curious to know. I wish if we it's just one of those things just to get behind the curtain. I would love to have seen all the different takes and cuts, and to determine for myself, because there were a few times where it wasn't as believable as the rest of it. I'm curious if that was the time that it was totally practical and it was because she was acting against no one versus, or is it the opposite and something with the special effect look faker?
I mean, they've dropped VOD on version of it, but we won't know until they drop the original, the actual version where you get the special features. We won't know what was what, because they're keeping that very under wraps.
It's really cool though.
Bless them.
This scene was definitely my favorite. It's not action, but something physical was happening. There's several scenes where it gets very physical and the man starts behaving with other people. This is the first time it happens, and it's probably the scene of the movie for that kind of stuff.
And again, right now it's $20 to rent on demand, which I guess they're assuming you're going to watch it with a friend, because that's more than the ticket price in theaters.
Well, with the people in your house. Do not invite people over right now. That's not good.
That is weird pricing though, right? Well, it doesn't matter. That's a different podcast.
No,
but
normally it's like $14.99 or like $19.99 to buy.
It shouldn't be more than a ticket. This isn't a boxing fight that you watch with your friends.
No, it's technically still in cinemas. We're in uncharted territory. So $19.99 is not unacceptable to rent a movie that came out 3 weeks ago.
Give it a shot. It was fun. That was fun. Thank you, Dave.
It's definitely
I enjoyed learning how the fuck they did that.
Thank you, Dave. I love that. Now, since we're a little sauced up, Dave's been drinking some 8% beer over here. I
made some bad choices.
4 Narragansetts going on 5. I don't know what John's up to, but I believe
I feel like they were ahead of me, so I drank some liquor just to catch up to these motherfuckers.
Which is great. So now we are going to redeem a movie, and I want to tell you guys something that's true about me. I grew up in the 90s, as at least one other person on this podcast did. And Will Smith is one of my favorite actors growing up. I don't care what you say.
I mean, we all grew up in the 90s. Some of us just grew up a lot before the 90s.
Some of us grew up a little quicker in the 90s than others. So I saw the first two Men in Blacks in theaters the weekend that they came out. I thought it was so cool. I still have images of Will putting his hands on the globe to get rid of his fingerprints, and he does the classic Will Smith yell.
Woo!
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
All of this movie, all of the lines. You know what the difference is between me and UK? I make this look good. Like, all of the lines. I love this movie. Vincent D'Onofrio, shout out to that first movie. We are talking about Men in Black.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
But
Vincent D'Onofrio was the highlight of that movie.
But this redemption that we're going to be doing today is Men in Black International. Came out summer of 2019. Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, Kumail Nanjiani as a voice, F. Gary Gray, who directed the original Friday movie. He also did Straight Outta Compton. He's a very well-known director. He's directed Outkast music videos, directed it. Huge budget. Tanked at the box office. Well, not tanked, but it just didn't do well at the box office. Critically mixed. It's got 5.6% on IMDb. So we decided to give it a redemption. Who wants to go first? I'm going to go to John.
You're going to just throw it at me like that? You're just going to just hit me with it?
Dave, what do you think about this movie?
I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in it.
There's
Like when they team up and like fight the main villain on the Bifrost. It's oh wait, that's Thor. Sorry, no, this was not a good.
Yeah, Jake.
Wait, was it good or not? I don't know. The people need to know, Dave. Was it good or not?
It was good. It was good. It like
let's give it.
I feel like it was a decent Men in Black. I can't, again, it's like so many of these things we try to redeem. I can't really put my finger on what went wrong here.
I think whenever that happens, it's just
a glowing
review.
Dave.
It's just
glowing.
Yeah.
That is a handsomely lukewarm review you just gave. It's not bad. It's an okay. It's a Men in Black movie. That's what I got.
I did not. I watched this on streaming. I'm glad I didn't pay money for it.
Yeah,
John.
Hey, all right. As we've done a couple times now, this was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Considering nobody saw this fucking movie last year. Nobody saw this. I always saw it every time I would go to the theaters, and I wasn't like trying not to see it. But it was kind of one of those things where it was not high on my list, and I didn't know anyone who saw it. So I was not. There was no word of mouth coming back to me that hey, it's not so bad. So I didn't mind waiting until it got to where do we see it? HBO Go. Where do we watch that?
It's on Stars. I saw it on Stars.
It's on Stars. Yeah, that's where we saw it on Stars. It was first of all, it was not that bad. I was not a huge fan of Men in Black 3.
Right, yeah.
I thought it started getting pretty tired, and I thought this was at least as decent as Men in Black 3.
Yeah.
So I know Will is not in it, although I really like there's some giant there's some giant fucking paintings.
This happens. Okay, I'm gonna clip this microphone. This happens to every fucking Will Smith movie. They resurrected Independence Day. Independence Day. Will Smith it's all of a sudden he's like no fucking way am I going to be in this movie. This movie looks terrible. But they were like, but we own your likeness from the first movie. So they put up posters from the first movie in these movies to basically be like, remember Will Smith?
Not a fucking poster, dude. A giant impressionistic painting of that with him and Tommy Lee Jones like standing over the dead bug. I don't know. It's in that was a very specific anecdote. I'm sorry. You'll see it if you see it. You'll know what we're talking about. And that made me laugh.
No, they know.
There's a couple things.
Go ahead. Yeah.
There's a couple things that made me uncomfortable. You almost never get context for how tall Chris Hemsworth is in the Marvel movies.
He is a monster.
I am not used to anyone looking down on Liam Neeson.
Oh yeah.
That was weird. That was weird seeing him standing an inch or two.
Liam Neeson's used that either.
I mean, that was fucking strange. That was weird.
He's like, I have a very unique set of skills. I'll take your kneecap out. I
don't know. Generally speaking, though, I did not mind this at all. I didn't mind Tessa Thompson's story. I didn't mind Chris Hemsworth. Once again, come on. If we're going to try to give credit where credit's due, he was always a funny Thor. I thought he carried it into this, too. I don't ever want to see him play serious roles anymore. I remember, what was that movie he did?
I'm wondering if there wasn't as much.
What was that movie he did about the race cars? Well, Moby Dick was fucking terrible.
With Daniel Rohl, he did. It's a one-word movie. It's.
But anyway, that one, the indie, the What's the name of that?
Daniel Bruhl is the other guy in it. It's a Ron Howard movie.
Yeah, so is the Moby Dick one, and I'm not saying he's a terrible actor. He's actually very funny, and I thought his humor worked really well in this movie. It didn't feel like he was doing Thor. It felt like he was doing kind of his own thing. And let's be real, like, what are we expecting from the fourth Men in Black installment? I thought they both rose to the occasion just fine. I thought it was significant enough. It was specific enough. It was you didn't have to care about anything in this movie to enjoy it. Right. Is that accurate?
That's a fair, actually.
Right?
That's a fair.
The story's a little sloppy.
I'm wondering if there wasn't as much directorial control over what was improvised. Because those two, you put them together, they love to improvise.
And I always feel...
I'm wondering, did they just let them run loose?
I don't know. Well, the one thing that always is tricky with movies like this that are CGI and otherworldly is I feel like the voiceover. They always get the voiceover actors who are great comedy people. So this is Kumail Nanjiani, who has a funny, I guess, character that is the voice, but it almost seems like you wish he could improvise.
Dude, oh my god, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
The worst part of this movie is that character.
The writing is so bad of that character. Like,
that
there's something funny where they're like, oh, my loyal queen, I bow my whatever to you. And then she's like, oh, I'm not a queen. And he goes, oh, it's too late.
Both of you have to drink.
It's just like...
Jeff, I'm watching you. Just pick up the beer. Pick up your beer.
All I wrote down...
He's funny and...
Ready? All I wrote down in my notes for this watch was, my first thing I wrote down was terrible intro to the Pawnee character. That first thing where he's like explaining his like after, because they all get killed. Or sorry, there's a spoiler alert before you meet Pawnee. His queen gets fucking killed. So he's this tiny little creature. When they come and meet him and he explains what happened and explains who he is, I completely left the movie. Like, everything I just said about how this movie is and how you don't have to care about anything, that was the only time, and every time he was on screen, I was like, how did a group of human beings not realize this wasn't making the movie better? I'm not saying it always made it worse.
No, it's
but it didn't make it better. It didn't make it better.
It has to get vetted by 10 different people in like a production room. It's like, well, who's our target people? And it's like, that's where the wiggle room is. It's like in that character. And it's like, okay, well, this can make it family friendly. This could double our demo. It's like, it's hard to not watch a movie thinking about that with that kind of stuff, because the movie's fun. I mean, honestly, I don't even really remember who like the villains were. I think they were aliens. There's a rat in the industry. But when you have a cast that's Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, get you asshole, Rebecca Ferguson, Rafe Spall, Emma Thompson, we haven't even talked about her in this movie, Liam Neeson, like, who's gonna be the rat? I don't know, it could be anybody, and that's, I guess, fun. I don't really know what they were fighting for. It was fine. Yeah. It was fun. It was good.
I mean, I remember the plot of Aquaman more than I remember the plot of this movie.
Here's why. The best part about this movie is this: they wanted to be Tessa Thompson. Is like, why is it the Men in Black? It could be it should be the person in black. I got there on my own because nobody took me seriously. So this is another pro-woman, pro-feminist movie, which is great for us three white guys to talk about right now. But the fact that all of these people in the movie, especially Emma Thompson, especially Liam Neeson, especially Rafe Spall, they're basically like, look, we just got paid a shit ton of money. We have a set schedule. We can see our kids over the weekend. Let's just have fun in making this movie. And there's a lot of personality in these characters that it's fun. It's not too stiff.
All right, so then let's ask the bigger question. Like, let's try to imagine ourselves in this scenario. If you're making the fourth installment of Men in Black, do you say to yourself, are we strictly trying to make people have fun and we're not trying to do anything that is going to get them feeling emotionally attached to these characters and stuff? Because, hold on, one of the best, why did we care about Tommy Lee's character? So he was super fucking charming. Of course, he was hilarious. Tommy Lee fucking Jones.
He wasn't trying to be charming.
They had great
vulnerability as well, though. Like,
yeah, but do you remember specifically what was he always doing when he was alone? Do you remember? In the first one?
Yeah.
He was looking at his wife that he had to leave, or the woman, not his wife, the girl he was bringing flowers to. So there was something...
He eliminated her, yeah.
Yeah, so there was something grounding emotionally. You kind of had a chance to get... It wasn't just about them kicking ass with sweet cricket guns and shit like that.
Just hit the nail on the head with what was missing. I mean,
that's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking. Do you think that was missing?
I mean, that aside, this was fun.
Okay, I agree.
You don't really feel for the
okay,
characters.
all right,
I didn't
hold
care.
on. Ready?
I didn't
Ready?
care. If
We're
the
gonna
aliens
get it.
took over the world at the
We're
end, I
gonna-
would've been fine.
We're gonna get into this.
It's popcorn.
We're gonna get into this in weeks to come
it's
because
popcorn.
the Fast and the Furious franchise will be on one of our matchups, and we
Right.
will be talking about that. I think a lesson from the Fast and the Furious that Men in Black did not take was that Fast and the Furious never sacrificed an opportunity to make you care more about the characters. It never just went straight for fucking just the cars. They always continued to figure out a way to build the mythology of how important the family was to them. And they did that by showing something that was happening to the individuals. There was usually one or two they would focus on. This movie clearly wanted to have tons of fun, and they did. And we're sitting here saying it. Yeah, we had a good time. But this is the real test, isn't it? I don't give a shit if I see a sequel to this version. Do you?
No.
And you probably won't.
You
Yeah,
really won't.
and you probably won't, right?
yeah.
So,
It was fun enough, but I mean,
but would you have? Isn't that the crux? Isn't that the thing that's really the defining thing?
yeah, I didn't care. Honestly, if the
Although-
if the aliens took over the world at the end, I would have been fine.
Which is a shame because they all
Actually,
did good
in saying
work.
that, you probably will.
So I had a good time. You're gonna have a good time, but that might be. Let's R.I.P. Men in Black. I don't know if we're gonna see another one. Honestly,
Yeah.
like I don't know if
All
they
right.
gave you any reason to want to watch the next one.
I mean, yeah.
Dave, anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, so we teased at the beginning of this episode, we're going to be doing we wanted it to be trilogies, but as John mentioned about Fast and the Furious, we're going to open it up a little bit. I don't want to give away too many movies, but up first, we're going to record and put this out, hopefully on Monday, is our number 1 versus number 16 trilogies/franchise of all time, according to us 3 people and nothing else. Our number 1 seed, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I'm very, very good. I'm glad we're talking about this up front because we all have a lot of days and nights free, and it is a thing.
Yeah.
Is a thing
It'll
to
take
watch.
up a day.
I mean, I know Return of the King is
They're my
on
favorite.
Netflix. I
They're
don't
my
think.
favorite.
Yeah,
No, what the hell? Go to iTunes, buy the extended
Yeah,
edition.
get on board, motherfuckers. Those movies fucking rock,
here's
dude.
one thing that I recommend. I've done this twice. I call it the hero's journey. I've done this twice. I imagine you guys have done this once. You watch one director's cut, like full 4-hour version each night, 3 nights in a row. So that's 12 hours, 3 nights in a row. It's tough. But anyway, you don't have to do it.
It's
I
not
just
tough at
recommend it.
all.
I've
It's
done this
fucking
in a
enjoyable
day,
as
you
shit.
pussy.
Fuck you, tough. It's fucking
Okay,
amazing.
So our number one trilogy of all time is Lord of the Rings.
Did we get buzzed for disparaging
Yeah,
Jeff?
fuck you.
And then-
Buzz him. Fuck you, Jeff.
Our number 16 is the Shaun of the Dead series.
Drink,
What is
bitch.
it called, Dave? The Palmetto series?
What the hell is wrong with you?
It's the Cornetto
The
series.
Cornetto series. Wow, we're great. I apparently have some
Yeah.
work to do before Sunday.
The Cornetto trilogy.
Cornetto series, which is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and
World's
The World's
End.
End. So,
The World's
Lord
End.
of the Rings versus Shaun of the Dead. Who will move on to the quarterfinal round? You have
The
to stay
result
tuned.
might surprise you.
All right, so this is Monday the 20th of March. Hopefully this podcast comes out Monday the 23rd of March.
Expect some arguments.
I hope
All right,
so.
everybody, we are signing out for right now. We're looking forward to get back into it. We are promised these are going to be some really entertaining episodes. Everybody stay safe. Everybody stay responsible. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back with you soon. Thanks so much.